The 2004 Kanye song All Falls Down is an incredible cocktail of complex social issues, vulnerability, materialism, systemic racism, and more, all over a classic, incredible Kanye beat. Kanye says he wrote it in 15 minutes, but today we'll pick apart the entire process and see how with sample clearance issues, it's a little more complicated than that. I'm gonna break down the story behind this song, the original sample used, how it had to be re-recorded, talk to one of the musicians involved.
We already mixed the song, we don't need this. And I'm like, you gotta recall the song and put the guitars in, dude. So they did.
And in the process, we'll see just how incredible this cocktail really is. The key to understanding the whole thing is a quote from this New York Times interview from 2013 where Kanye describes the mix of his sound and lyrics in his early days. He said, "I used to have tracks that sounded like Timbaland. I used to have tracks that sounded like DJ Premier. But Jay-Z was an amazing communicator that made the soul sound extremely popular. And because I could make the soul sound in my sleep, it finally gave me a platform to put the message that my parents put inside of me, and that Dead Prez helped to get out of me, and Mos Def and Talib Kweli, they helped get out of me. I was able to put it, sloppily wrap it, on top of the platform that Jay-Z had created for me." And here's the really crucial part. And it wasn't until I hung out with Dead Prez and understood how to make, raps with a message sound cool that I was able to write All Falls Down in 15 minutes. 15 minutes is crazy for any song, and All Falls Down especially. But as we're going to see, there's a bit more to the story that took longer. For instance, let's take a listen to the demo of this song from the Freshman Adjustment mixtape from 2003.
What you say? I hear you, L Boogie. Remember they used to call you that? What you say, Lauren? Just keep singing, I'ma tell her. Man, I promise, she's so self-conscious. She has no idea what she's doing.
The sample used here is the Lauryn Hill song Mystery of Iniquity from her MTV Unplugged performance from 2002. And while this sample is pitched up from the original song, it's very slight. This is different from Kanye's early chipmunk soul sound. He used that technique a lot on The College Dropout, but on this All Falls Down demo, he's sampling in a different way. Of course, that all goes out the window when you can't get the sample clear. Kanye had to figure out another production technique, but more on that in a second. Around the same time as the mixtape, before The College Dropout was released, Kanye used portions of this song in his appearance at the Def Poetry Jam. After being introduced by Mos Def as the future of hip-hop, Kanye recites a poem called Self-Conscious.
What? I'm so self-conscious. That's why you always see me with at least one of my watches.
So far, we've been talking about production styles, sampling, all the musical stuff in this song. But this performance is stripped of the music entirely. It's so incredible to see this version of it because his delivery is completely different.
Rollies and Poshers then drove me crazy. I can't even pronounce nothing. Past that for Stacy.
He's taking more time on the lines.
Then I spent $400.
Because there's no music, he's pausing for laughter.
You ain't up on this.
And this isn't the complete lyrics of the final song, so presumably he's still working on it. But more than any of that, the words hit differently without a beat behind it. Since it's just the words and no music, it forces you to lean in a little more and listen to what he's saying. All right, it's metaphor time. It's that time in the video when I bring in some other seemingly unrelated idea and use it to explain what I'm trying to say in a deeper way. I see the artistic process as being three distinct levels. The top level is the big abstract thing that the artist wants to say, but if you were to just talk about it, it would take hours and you still wouldn't cover everything. So the artist distills this down into some form of art. This could be visual, it could be musical, it could be a story, a movie, a song, or a painting, whatever medium the artist wants to work in. And then the last level, when it's really good art, that's when the viewer, the listener, reader, or whoever takes this distilled thing and expands it back out for themselves. Then and only then, you're able to understand that top layer, the abstract thing, in a way that you otherwise wouldn't. And here's the metaphor, that middle layer, the distilled thing, it could be different. A movie or TV show uses people, facial expressions, words, all the normal everyday life stuff. So this artistic distilling process results in a beer. It's like 5% alcohol, it'll get you to feel the feeling, and it's consumed by a lot of people. Music might be something like wine. It's like 12% alcohol, so maybe a little more potent, but also a little more abstract and therefore a little less accessible. Like, not everyone likes jazz, but if you do, when you hear an incredible improvised solo played with not just technique, but feeling behind it, man, it's hard to describe how incredible that is to people who don't like jazz. But with a glass of wine, once you unpack it and understand the various tasting notes, pun intended, it's incredible. So then something like poetry is like hard liquor. It's not for everybody. For me, even though I like it, I can't just wake up and take a shot of whiskey first thing in the morning. I gotta be really ready to unpack everything happening in the poem because this small thing has the potential to knock me on my ass. So hearing Kanye perform sections of All Fall Down at this Def Poetry Jam setting, stripped of music, performing it as a poem, he's distilling down his message even further. His rhymes, wordplay, double meaning, and delivery make All Falls Down like a shot of whiskey. But as we know, he's also got a demo cooking. This isn't just a poem, it's also a song that uses a Lauryn Hill sample. This is the version of the song that he played in the Rockefeller offices when he was trying to get signed, as shown in the Netflix documentary. Look at her face. Kanye knows he has a hit on his hands, and he does, but right now he's just some dude rapping his demo in her office while she's trying to work. I love it. Kanye does get the deal and gets working on what would become 2004's The College Dropout, but the only hiccup on this song is that he has to clear that Lauryn Hill sample. Sample clearance is an issue as old as hip-hop itself. In 1979, the Sugar Hill Gang released Rapper's Delight, which was the first big hip-hop radio hit. This song sounds like it samples Good Times by Chic, but it doesn't. It's an interpolation, which means it was re-recorded by a separate group of musicians with the specific intent of sounding like the original. But why would you want to do that? Well, there just isn't a good system for sampling. You have to clear each sample with each label or artist directly, and they can ask for whatever percentage they want or straight up decline your request to sample it. But if you re-record it, it's technically a cover, and there's a system in place for that called mechanical licensing, which makes the whole thing much easier. And if you don't clear the sample and get caught, well, then you have lawsuits like the Turtles suing De La Soul for transmitting live from Mars, or De La's first 6 albums being kept off streaming for years. It's not a good system, but it's what we've got. And you guessed it, Lauryn Hill wouldn't clear the sample. So with a looming deadline from the label, Kanye set out to re-record the sample. Kanye enlisted the help of Ken Lewis to re-record the acoustic guitar sample.
Well, I've been working with Kanye since about 2001 or 2002, since long before he was an artist or anybody really knew he wanted to be an artist. Snap forward to The College Dropout. I think I worked on 5 or 6 songs on The College Dropout. Most of what I did was sample recreations and a little bit of songwriting and production. Like, you gotta understand, during The College Dropout, the end of it, we were awake for about 2 weeks straight. And I'm not slightly exaggerating. It was probably the worst thing I've ever done to my body. And on All Falls Down, he had this Lauryn Hill sample that had this nylon string guitar. One night I just turned in one big piece of work that Kanye had me working on. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning there. He loved it. And then out of the blue, I get this call at like 7 a.m. from Kanye. Dude, I got Selena Johnson in the studio right now. I need you to cut this guitar part and send it right back to me immediately. And I'm like, send it. So he sent it. It was like 7 in the morning, maybe 6 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning by then in LA, and I was in New York. So I just had an acoustic guitar, and I grabbed the acoustic and I listened to the part and I recreated the part, put it down, and fine-tuned it and sent it over. But I knew it wasn't right. It really should have been a nylon string guitar, not a steel string. But when Kanye wants something, he wants it right then, and there's, that's that. So after I turned that in at like 9 o'clock in the morning, I drove straight to Guitar Center and sat there in the parking lot till 10 a.m. until they opened. And then I went straight back to the nylon string section and pulled every single one down off the wall, played until I found a beautiful one that was really in tune and well intonated, and I took that one back and I recut the part, cleaned it all up, and resent it. And I sent it to Plain Pat, who was the A&R on it. Pat calls me up and he's like, "Nah, dude, we already mixed the song. We don't need this." And I'm like, "Pat, you gotta recall the song and put these guitars in. Trust me on this." He's like, "No, we're good." And I'm like, "Pat, recall the song and put the guitars in, dude." So they did. And he calls me later. He's like, "Bro, you were so right. Oh, those are so great. Oh, thank you."
So were you then in the nylon, like playing nylon strings in Guitar Center? I'm assuming because you're doing a sample recreation, you're playing the actual part in Guitar Center?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I can just imagine, like, if there's a Guitar Center employee within earshot that's hearing you play that, and then, you know, a couple months later, whenever the song comes out, they're like, "Wait a minute, that sounds familiar. Why do I know that?" Ken re-recorded the acoustic guitar, and while it sounds like the original Lauren sample, the guitar on All Falls Down is clearer, fuller, more present in the mix, and better sounding than the original sample could be. But then there's the issue of Lauren's vocals. Now, Kanye didn't have to look far to find someone who could cover it. In fact, he was already in the studio with Common and Selena Johnson working on her album. And as she tells it,
so then he was like, "Selena, I was wondering if I could try something with you, if you could try something for me." It's like 6 a.m. and I'm like, "Okay, cool, whatever." So we go next door. He plays a record for me. He's like, "Yeah, I need somebody on this hook." He didn't tell me any of the logistics. He just said, "I need somebody on this hook. I've been trying to find somebody to re-sing the hook." He didn't tell me why. He didn't tell me nothing. I didn't know that she didn't clear it until afterwards. I go into the booth and they play it's the Mystery of Iniquity sample. And when it all falls down. That's how it goes. Like it's slow. I'm telling you it all falls down. And so he was like, "All right." And so I just kept trying to do it exactly. I'm doing it all just like her. Trying to do it exactly because, to my understanding, he was trying to get the sample. He was trying to get somebody to sing the sample so that he wouldn't have to pay for the sample. But then he was like, "All right, now switch it up. Do some things you want to do." So then that's when I started stacking it. I'm telling you, all those different voices and like 10 o'clock in the morning, next morning. Now, mind you, it's 7 something when I'm getting home. So they call it like 10, 11. Yeah, so the video is next week. We about to do this, and we're gonna do this. It's the next single is coming out this day, and this, that, and the third, and this, that, and the third. We're going on a tour, and it like all this in one day. So I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, that's a good idea. Oh, that's sharp. Oh, okay, cool, thanks."
And just like with the guitar, Selena's vocal performance stands on its own. She's an incredible singer who did more than just recreate the sample. She made it her own, made a new version of the song that now people associate with All Falls Down. From there, Kanye added some drums and a few other things to it, re-recorded his vocals, and finished the song just in time for it to be released and take off. This song hit number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, has been certified double platinum, and was nominated for a Grammy. But remember the quote from the beginning? Kanye said it wasn't until he hung out with Dead Prez that he understood how to make raps with a message sound cool, and that he wrote this song in 15 minutes. The initial demo may have taken only 15 minutes, but the final version took a bit longer to complete. But let's focus on Dead Prez and making a song with a message. Take the Dead Prez song, Hip Hop. This song has a partial YouTube block on it, so I can't play it, and I'm so mad because the beat alone is incredible. This was the opening of every episode of Chappelle's Show. The song is so good. Spotify link in the description, go listen to it. Not only is the beat amazing, the lyrics are too. Dead Prez criticizes the music industry and its exploitation of black people, and encourages the use of hip-hop as a way to make social change. For instance, Stick closes the song out with the lines, "These record labels slang our tapes like dope. You can be next in line, signed, and still be writing rhymes and broke. You would rather have a Lexus or justice, a dream or some substance, a Beamer, a necklace, or freedom." They're taking this larger idea that would take a long time to talk about, distilling it down and delivering it as a potent mix of lyrics and music. We can see the same thing happening in All Falls Down. For example, in the first verse, Kanye is describing a woman who is self-conscious and she's in college because that's what she's supposed to do, and he delivers lines like, "She's so precious with the peer pressure, couldn't afford a car so she named her daughter Alexis." Precious, peer pressure, Alexis. Peer pressure sounds like precious, and Alexis and precious complete the rhyme, not to mention a Lexus. This is a very funny line. Kanye is distilling a lot in here. In the second verse, he talks about himself and his own self-consciousness before turning it around on society at large, continuing into the third verse, breaking down systemic issues, and then we get to what I think is the most potent line of the whole song.
Cause they made us hate ourselves and love they wealth. That's why shorty's hollering, where the ballers at? Drug dealer buy Jordan, crack here by crack, and the white man get paid off for all of that.
I mean, remember how I said Kanye's Def Poetry Jam version of this was like a shot of whiskey? The final version of All Falls Down feels like some sort of whiskey cocktail. It's got some other stuff mixed in there, but damn, it's still got a pretty potent kick. He finishes the song by saying he's prone to the same issues as everybody else. We're all self-conscious, I'm just the first to admit it. Kanye's taken this big idea, distilled it all the way down to a potent poem, this shot of whiskey, then made it a song, so a whiskey cocktail. Let's call it a whiskey sour. But what's that? Oh, Lauryn Hill won't let you have the sour mix? Well, just make your own. Selena Johnson's got the lemon juice, Ken Lewis has the sugar. Now it's more delicious and mixes better anyway. Man, I love it when a good metaphor comes together. While All Falls Down uses an interpolation of a song, his first single, Through the Wire, is a classic example of the chipmunk soul technique that he loved in his earlier production. The insane thing about that song is the reason why it's called Through the Wire is because he was rapping with his jaw wired shut after a near fatal car accident. But for that whole story, you gotta watch this video.